Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to season 4 and episode number 530 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Crier Media Network. Yeah! Woohoo! Little extra spirit in there. Today recording day is Monday, December 9th, 2024. Did I say the name of the show? I don't remember. I got a little excited there when I got into the song. Yes, I did. And it is, I can't tell what kind of a day it is actually at the Beaver Lodge because it is still so dark that there's nothing coming through the curtain. Like no light at all. So I can't tell. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A. And with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. Of course, a big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. By the way, if you're looking for some really good and unique and tasty Christmas gifts, please take a little visit to the Peppermaster's website, and maybe you will find something for everybody to love there. Just a little plug there because they've been very good to us. And we didn't actually coordinate a Christmas campaign this year, so figured I'd just mention it if you're looking for some gift ideas. All right. We have a show. Anything happen on the weekend, Mr. Chris? Before we ask you that, how's your mental health? But it was just a boring weekend with not much happening in the world. How is your mental health today, sir?
Actually, it's not too bad right now at the moment, to be honest with you. I think I'm doing good. I've got had a brief bit of extreme anxiety last night, but I'm good now. I've just, when you start to think about, okay, I've got a deadline today that I have to hit, there's no money coming in, and the money is dwindling fast. It's like, ugh. But it's like, chin up. I'll finish this. I'll get this deadline reached. I'll finish this book. I'll reach out to shared services, which I'm not looking forward to, so that I can get my EI until I can find employment that pays. Yeah, it was a bit of a rough night, but get through it.
I'm sorry to hear that, my friend.
That's okay.
We had a really interesting weekend. We were supposed to go to Toronto to go see my nephew play in a volleyball tournament and to see my niece, who is taken to the stage and school where was doing a version of Oliver Twist, and she was in it. So I was planning to go and cheer for Marco, and then get some flowers to be ready to give them to Kiki and let them know both how fabulous they were and a full, wonderful weekend of being with my Beaver Sweeties family, being a gunkle, which I love to do.
Mm.
And we started driving, and we got a little bit outside Napanee, I think it was, when Alex had been noticing some stuff with the car. There was a light that was flashing on
Mhm.
the dashboard, and I wasn't paying as much attention to what he was saying as I probably should have, because in every couple, one person is more one thing than the other.
Mhm.
So I'm the way more chill one, like way more chill. I love my Beaver Sweetie, but he's wound a little tight sometimes. So
Okay.
yes. So when we have a lot of our conversations start with like, should I worry about this, or it's like sort of that type of thing. So he's the worrier between us two. So there was me. I was like, "Ah, you worry about everything. It's a light goes on. Like I know anything about cars. They won't even let me drive. So, like I know how they work. Yeah, ask me for my advice. I'm helpful in this situation. Um, so, uh, so but he's noticing something weird, and then he makes some calls and whatnot. Did you know? Because I did not know this, and neither did he, that certain vehicles come with something called limp mode.
I have not heard that before.
Yep, it's not in the manual, it's not in the book. But if something's going wrong, that may be that could do some damage to your engine or drivetrain or something like that. The car makes it such that you can't get really over like 80 or something, and you can't, if you're flooring it to try to move past someone to accelerate, that's not going to happen for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, and it's basically limp mode. It gives you just what you need without trying to tax the engine too much to limp to a garage rather than.
I've never heard that term before, but I had a car that did that to me.
Yep. Yep. So apparently it's called limp mode. So that was what was going on. So which means you got to try to limp to a garage, except it's Saturday night and it's 8 p.m. and
Good luck.
So we're like, so we're going to Canadian Tire, and we're getting this like code thing that you plug into your car to figure out what it is that's going, what those signal things are going on. Then we placed the calls, and then we found out, and all that kind of stuff. And we're thinking, well, we got to limp back home. That's not just to a garage. That's all the way back home, because we're like midway. We're not midway. We're about like a third of the way, maybe
About a third
at this time. So and we're like, are we making it? You're like this, or like, are we going to like stop by the side of the road at one point? Because it's like if we need to get a hotel, I'd like to get a hotel now, since we're in the city now, rather than being on the side of the road for a couple of hours. And Saturday was not a nice night weather-wise. So, but we did get back home. And yeah, so totally different weekend happening than that which we had planned, of course. And we get through the weekend, and then yesterday afternoon, my Beaver Sweetie asks me in the afternoon, because the clouds broke at one point and there was some beautiful sunshine, and says, "Do you want to go for a walk?" And I'm sitting there and says, "Oh, well, I'm about to write some episode descriptions. This is the day I was going to catch up and get back to like exactly even." It's like, but it is a really nice day, and the day before was just right, freezing rain and cold and blah. So we decided to go for this walk, completely forgetting that we had a dinner engagement. So we go for the walk. I come back home, and I basically get back home and I see a text. "Oh, we have dinner at 5," which means I basically have to get up and walk back to exactly where I was before I walked home. I'm like, "Oh, you gotta be kidding." I was like, "Shit, I forgot about that." And I'm sitting there, it's like, I don't really want to go, and I'm trying to get out of it. And my Beaver Sweetie's being so nice and say, "Well, if you really have to get it done." And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, oh God, it's like, what's one more day, right? Work is always there. I have some time for some quality time with my sweetie.
Mm-hmm.
So I go to the dinner. And on the way to the dinner, I'm looking through my phone. And that's when I notice that the auditions for a chorus line were this weekend.
So you completely missed them?
So I was going to, yeah, had we gone, I was going to completely miss them. And then I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, oh, well, damn, I missed them completely. And then I look, no, Sunday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Oh, so you were still able to make it.
But it's 5:45 and I'm in khakis and I'm on my way to a restaurant for dinner.
Not the worst thing in the world.
So like we're sitting there like as I get there and I show Alex, it's like, I knew I was forgetting something this weekend because he's asking me if I could go this weekend. And yeah, I don't think I've got anything. It's like, yeah, I actually did. I had 2 things actually. So we have dinner and I'm sort of like, well, listen, I mean, we're here for dinner, so I'm not going to rush dinner with friends to get to go to an audition anyway. We're on the bus and I have to go back home to get something to dance in, because if I high kick in these khakis, I tell you, I'm going to split them. They're a little tight. Got some big legs. But dinner ended early on its own, and we did have time to grab the bus, and then we took a chance with the car on limp mode because it wasn't far to the audition. Okay. So we figured we could chance it, and we went. And oddly enough, my Beaver sweetie decided to audition too. He does not like auditions; they make him nervous as crazy, right? And this is last minute audition for musical, not his style, right? He's more opera, early music choir singing. He's got the voice of an angel, but this is a chorus line, it's a little brassy and ballsy and fun and peppy, and all that kind of stuff, right? It's not la 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 la, right? So, but he went for it, and my sweetie is not a natural dancer, which is fine for a chorus line because in the opening scene, right, there are people that get cut, right? So he really went for it.
Oh yeah.
Like he really went for it. I'm like, we're in the dance portion like this, and I'm watching it. Like he's going for it, and it's like, and he's got no training like at all. So he's going for it. I've never seen him like go for it that way dancing. So he went for it, and of course he sang beautifully. And then they gave him some direction when he was saying, and they said, when you get to this part like this, sing it like you're angry, rather. Okay. And it's like, okay. Whoa.
So angry worked for him?
I'm outside the audition room. The volume went up. But again, I did not know. Like, these are sides of him I'm discovering, right? Because I see him every night. I see him perform. It's in a choir. Right. So it's like I'm in the outside the room going, yeah. Like cheering and stuff, and I go in. So my audition went well. The singing went well. They had me read for the lead.
Oh, cool.
Now the good part about that is that, well, while the lead is the lead in the chorus line is the director of the show, so he doesn't really sing or dance. And I'm auditioning for a musical because I like to sing and dance. It's like, wouldn't that be ironic? It's like, I auditioned for a musical. What are you saying? Nothing. I'm the one acting only role. But yeah, so things worked out. I went for it. It went well for him. It went well for me. So now the whole thing is, of course, I am a little, as I mentioned on the show, a little long in the tooth for a chorus line, but I put right there on the form, willing to dye my hair and take this off to shave off a few years, and if that needs be. But it's the dance portion went really well for me, which is very good because this particular style of dancing is not the one I was trained in.
Mhm.
I wasn't trained in jazz, right? So I was trained in lyrical. Um, but I did very well, especially since it's been 30 years since I've danced anything remotely jazz. So,
Oh, that's cool.
uh, yeah. So I mean, I did not nail it. And there's one time where they asked for a double turn with a kick out, and I think she looked at me at the end and says, "Did you just do four? The triple with the kick out?" Says, "I don't know. I was just trying to stay vertical. I forgot to count my rotations." I was just trying not to go, "Ah." When I it, it had been a while since I tried a double with a kick out. There's not enough room in my living room to try that.
Take
So
a TV or something.
pretty much. Or, bang your ankle against the table or table leg or something or the sofa. It's like, father,
Mhm.
so, um, so yeah, now we wait, fingers crossed. But the rehearsal schedule will be a little more hectic than I expected because normally they take longer. When we did We Will Rock You, it was like we started in early December and we didn't start presenting till late April or something. And this one we would be starting, well, we'd have a couple before Christmas, but we go on stage March 29th. So it's for musical, it's a short rehearsal period. But fortunately, there's only like two big group numbers, which is at the beginning and the end, and everything else are, while there's a lot of people on stage, it's mostly, um, not mostly, but individual things with, some plays back and forth. So not every individual doesn't have a heavy load as opposed to We Will Rock You, where, as the background, we were in 7 or 8 scenes. Like we were on stage a lot. So we had to be at a lot of rehearsals.
Mhm.
So yeah, uh, just a complete sort of topsy-turvy weekend. It's like, oh, we're going here. Whoops, no, we're going over here. No, we're doing that. Oh, this happened. Jeez. So yeah, we had to be the river and just sort of go with the flow this weekend. And you know, um, oddly enough, considering, as I've mentioned for those who have been following the show, considering how the heavy things have been here for a while, um, that the whole thing, all the speed bumps and curveballs and whatnot,
Mhm.
were all taken in such stride. It was really nice. I mean, it sucks that we didn't get to have original plans and go cheer on our niece and nephew and, and have that joy. But we, rather than getting bummed out, rather than sulking, rather than, you know, letting that be one more thing that goes on the pile and maybe having an argument somewhere down the line, I guess everything we just like, meh, what are you going to do? And then we rolled with it, which
Mm.
I guess was probably the right attitude in these circumstances. So yeah, uh, long thing. I had a lot to say today. All right, in the news, there is stuff nationally, and maybe we'll have some time to get to some of that today. But the the world has shifted
Mhm. Oh, yes.
over the course of the weekend. Uh, in Syria, after only about 11 days in this fighting, uh, the regime of Bashar al-Assad, the regime of the al-Assad family, because they've been ruling for over 50 years, I think since 1971 or something.
Mhm.
I heard on the news, is over.
Yeah,
Just
he's taken asylum in Moscow, which is no surprise because
yeah,
Russia backed his civil war.
yeah,
So,
and last week we were reported that all his family, except him, were probably already there,
yeah.
according to a reporter in Kiev. Uh, it's it's hard to describe just how this changes a lot. Because Russia's involved, Iran is involved, Israel is involved because it shares a border with Syria in the Golan Heights area. That was an area that Israel took from Syria back in 1967 during the Six-Day War. But it's a strategic high ground. Right? So Israel has mobilized troops to the border and a little bit beyond to make sure that there's nothing that happens, and is making some strategic sites on sort of ammunition sites or whatnot to make sure that some weapons don't get in the wrong hands, but they're not planning at the moment to get involved any more than that. And then, well, I mean, that's a huge blow for Russia's presence in the Middle East. Iran's embassy in Syria has been taken over by rebel forces, and Iran is already weakened. As we already mentioned, with Hezbollah, they told them to take the ceasefire deal. I'm sure Iran is probably, like Hezbollah the other day said, we're going to stick with you, Syria, ... as much as we are able to.
Mm-hmm.
We have no more rockets. So Iran really can't do much at the moment. So it's kind of an interesting thing, if you're talking about strategy. These rebels in Syria picked a moment where Iran was somewhat weakened and otherwise occupied with what's going on with Hezbollah and whatnot. Hezbollah was weakened and otherwise occupied with what was going on in Israel. And Russia is otherwise occupied and very weakened and depleted with what's going on in Ukraine. And said, what? This might be a moment. Al-Bashar's friends are kind of busy with other calls at the moment. Could you? It's sort of like the geopolitical equivalent of Bashar al-Assad is like on the phone, and it's like, hello, your call is very important to us, but we are busy in Ukraine and we are busy in Israel. But if you'll just hold the line, one of our agents will get back to you as soon as possible. Your estimated waiting time is 6 months. Right? I mean,
well, so this individual who brought about the fall of the Assad regime, the Assad dictatorship, the brutal dictatorship under Assad. On Friday, a friend of mine was telling me that he'd come out and said, we need to learn to live together, which means that he, I think, wants peace. I mean, legitimately, I believe this man wants peace. Maybe I'm wrong, but as I understand it, he wants peace. And of course, Israel just went ahead and bombed Damascus about 2 hours ago. Because they said it was a preemptive strike on a chemical weapons plant or something.
Oh, you gotta fucking be kidding me.
No, I'm not. I'm just trying to bring up the story here.
See, because where I was going with this, because you mentioned something, was like, but whether they can be of their word on that, again, trust but verify, right? When the Taliban retook control in Afghanistan. They didn't say they were going to do what they are doing now. That wasn't the initial face that they presented to the world. So, and we knew it wasn't going to be great to start with, but, everybody thought, whoa, it was like, not even women's voice. They can't even talk to each other now. Like, nobody thought that it was going to go even that, as terrible as we thought it was going to be. I don't think anybody had that one on their bingo card. So, President Biden said the United States is monitoring the situation closely. Basic boilerplate statement. Trump is, the United States should have nothing to do with it. This is not our fight. Let it play out. Do not get involved, which in this case might ironically be not the dumbest advice. Unfortunately, the United States is somewhat already involved. There are 1,000 American troops in Syria already. The U.S. has been involved since before Trump's first term. And during his term, Trump did make a series of moves that shaped the U.S. involvement. So it's not like he completely stayed out of it either when he was up there, even though his overall policy isn't supposed to be non-interventionist and isolationist.
According to
You have
this,
something? Yeah.
yes, this is from Mideast Eye. I'm not familiar with them, but it's just coming out now. Israel bombs 100 targets in Syria. Assad flees Damascus and given asylum in Russia. Israeli tanks advance deeper into Syrian territory as Tel Aviv bombs 100 sites across the country. War Monitor says 910 killed, including 138 civilians since Syrian rebel offensive. Egypt condemns further occupation of Syrian lands by Israel. It's just like, really?
I know.
Did you have to, like, really?
Yeah, I know. Like, I understand, right? They're taking out weapons things, but I thought they would be like around the border with like this, not like fly right into the capital. And it's like, my God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
That man.
Nobody can get
You can't. It's like, let it play out for a few frickin' days.
Mm-hmm. No, they said they're
He didn't even give it a chance.
No, they said they're going to be preemptive strikes because it's a possible chemical weapons plant, 100 sites. Like, man,
I get it, but anyway. All right. So the situation is very. Pardon, Mr. Rizzi?
Those poor folks, man, they just can't catch a break.
I know. So the situation, and here's the thing. Sorry, before I move to the situation is very fluid at the moment. There are multiple rebel groups in Syria, right? There's not just this one, TSH that they're calling it, which is currently declared an official terrorist group by the UN, the United States, I think the UK, Canada, many other places, certain countries like the UK, for example. If they want to deal with them, we'll have to actually change some legislation, right, to be able to do that. So, I mean, these are not based on what we know of them, typically good guys. Traditionally, right? They were associated with Al-Qaeda. They broke away, formed something called al-Nusra, and then something else happened. The question becomes is whether all these multiple rebel groups, and it's an absolute maze of groups, are going to work together, or will they start fighting each other? Now, there seems to be talk at this moment of working together, like Mr. Grizzly says here. Al-Golani is quoted as saying, "This victory, my brothers, is a new chapter in the history of the entire Islamic nation. It's a turning point for the region. The group he leads is and he says that said something without wanting to build something without vengeance coming up. So he's talking about rights. He's talking about wanting a democratic system. So this is al-Golani, who's the leader of this TSH group. So saying the right things, but how does that survive first contact? So, and how much do they really mean it? So, but at the moment, the vibe that they seem to be giving is that they do want to create, while probably an Islamist state, somewhat democratic, I guess, a la Turkey, where the various factions could have some representation rather than fight. I mean, they have been under the al-Assad family rule for 50-something years, and this particular war started up in 2011, so it's 13 years. So could be that some of these more dictatorial, autocratic people after 13 years under an actual autocrat, maybe we don't want to rule that way if we come in charge. Maybe because we didn't really like it. Maybe. I don't know. But we're in an interesting part, I guess, and I got into a couple of debates and I've watched a few where somebody's going like, well, butchers versus Islamists. It's like, there's nothing to cheer for here. There's like, there's like, because Bob Ray our ambassador to the USN was saluting the courage of, the universal term that's being used right now is rebels, because people don't want to taint the waters, given that they are sending the signs. So they don't want to say these terrorists or these. So the international universal term right now used it appeared to be agreed upon at the moment is rebels to describe them. A lot of other people, depending on their personal experiences or family experiences, I guess will have other names for these people, right? So we're in a situation that if you are wearing a darker lens, then, oh, great, they're changing butchers for another set of butchers. Yay. Woohoo, freedom, right? And the whole 2011 crackdown, happened when there was that sort of orange wave of protests in that whole area where they were demanding more democracy. And then Bashar al-Assad said, thumb, nope, we're going to crush you. How dare you demand democracy? It's like we're entitled to rule this. So the conditions are ripe for that to happen this time around, just like the conditions are just as ripe to, we're just going to write another chapter of the same old story, except with different leaders and different rebels eventually. So this could go either way at the moment. But at least the leader of the more dominant of the rebel groups is showing some signs. It would seem that given that Iran can't really get involved so much right now, and neither can Russia, because there's this thing called the Doha Forum that was taking place in Qatar, and the Qatari Prime Minister had a couple of words to say on the mic about the situation there that probably would not have made Iran and Russia happy. And Iran and Russia were talking to Turkey, Erdogan, and sort of saying, basically, Turkey, do something. And on this file, Erdogan is not with Putin or the supreme leader in Iran. There are some Kurds, Syrian Kurds, in the east, because what happened over the course of the weekend is that movement from the northwest was joined by a movement from the south that was coming up and a movement from the east. So what was happening is that all the areas that were, there was going to be, when all those territories were joined by those various rebel groups, the portions of Syria that were controlled by the al-Assad family and the Alawite sect would not be able to be connected together, number one, and they would be encircled. So if Homs was to fall, then they're getting to the outskirts of Damascus, and if you're isolating people on one side towards the Mediterranean coast, that's where a lot of the Alawites are, and where all the Russian naval and aerial support is, and you can't get out, and they're controlling the major airport in the area, and they're controlling the major industrial portion of the area. Kind of understandable why al-Assad's family fled, and why now he might be reportedly gone as well. So 11 days, but these various groups saw what was happening and they all mobilized. I don't know if they were working together. Some people suspect that Israel may have been providing a little bit of a coordination function, but there appears to be no evidence of that, of any help between Israel and some of the rebel groups. But Erdogan, Turkey, pretty much sent Russia and Iran packing.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know what it means in the long run, but it is interesting. I mean,
really, Putin and Iran going to Turkey, going like, brother, can you help us out? It's like, help you out. It's like, whenever I helped you, when have I ever helped you out on this particular file?
Well, here's something just breaking. Germany has put 47,270 Syrian asylum applications on ice, saying the situation in Syria is too, in quotes, unclear to decide if fleeing a war-torn country is a valid reason for asylum.
Yep, that'll probably be happening in many places right now because, for example, some of the things that have been happening is the prisons have been liberated as well, right?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Everything's in flux right now.
Well, that's exactly right. With a new rebel group, and they're getting ready to take over leadership. Like I said, if they decide that they're going to do more than just try to rebuild the nation, and like I said, this nation will not might not be rebuilt in ways that we here in Canada think of as being, oh, this is a great advancement. So, like I said, if you're watching this from a darker lens, oh, great, butchers for Islamists. Whoa, yay.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to look at it through a rosier lens, it could be, okay, well, the al-Assads definitely were butchers. I mean, accused of using chemical weapons against their own people. So if these guys, relatively to the guys before, are more moderate, maybe still extreme for life in Canada, but more moderate to what was there before. Well, and let's say they get a little out of control and people rise up again because they see it work again, and then the next group comes is a little more moderate until eventually over time, maybe. Like I know I'm grasping here, but it's like if we're going to poo-poo on everything right before it starts, right?
Well, let's give it a chance, right? See what happens.
Maybe they are sincere. When you're choosing between two devils, if one is not as bad as the other, yes, it's still a devil. We're not happy, but it's better.
Well,
you know what I mean? I understand that there's not that this could be a situation where it seems like there's not a lot to cheer for, but there are people saying the right things. Whatever happens there is not going to be Western style.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the thing, right? It's like how much choice the people are going to have in formulating the choices they will have to choose from as to how they'll govern themselves or whether or not that will be imposed kind of matters in this. It's like if these rebel groups just turn around and says, well, this is the way it's going to be, and now we've changed one set of impositions for another set of impositions, and you don't get a say. Not as good. If there are some negotiations between all these rebel factions, and there are countries like Turkey is willing to play a leadership role in there, says, hey, if you need some support, some assistance, for the capacity building to do that, we're here.
Well,
you never know. And Turkey has, for all its up and downs, has managed to run an Islamist democracy. So
Turkey was a secular nation for centuries.
Yes. Now it isn't. But
now it isn't. And a lot of Turks are leaving because they don't want any part of that.
Yeah.
I just read here something that I just learned a moment ago. This story's from 19 hours ago, but I'm just learning about it now. So we know Israel bombed Syria yesterday. They also bombed Gaza and Lebanon. So Netanyahu is creating a situation for the citizens of Israel where they will have no safe harbor anywhere. He's really creating a problem for the people that live there who want no part of it.
Unless he really believes that this is the end game moment. There's pressure, and like hopefully the region will hit a tipping point. Because if Iran is going to be out of the game for a little while, and one of Iran's number one proxies, Syria, is going to be out of the game for a little while, that creates a situation for the UAE and the Qataris and the Saudis to reposition, and Israel now has a certain number of agreements with certain of those countries, Egypt, and they have some non-aggression or some, you know, agreements to try and do things a little differently than war. So if they can get more nations to come onto that, it could be right. I hate to give him credit for anything. I don't like it, but broken clock. Just maintain the overwhelming. It's like, no, things are moving. Let's keep them moving until they've moved, and like not just past the edge, but way past the edge, so that we don't come back. You have to build something new. So that could be one hope. The other hope is, all you're doing is just build. All you're doing is just planting the seeds for the next 7 generations of 200 years ago, your family did this, so I got to avenge you now. And it's like, can we just let this go? It's 200 years ago. So like I said, my mind, I'm a very Western Canadian boy. My mind is not formed in any way to understand how something that could have happened 100 years ago or 200 years ago or 1,000 years ago would still give me reason today to want to seek vengeance for it, or retribution or retaliation. I can see things, like in our Canadian history with residential schools, I can see how things happen so many times, so many years ago, can have intergenerational effects that are horrible and terrible, and that as a society we need to fight or repair at that point to make up for past injustices. But I don't see, my brain is just not hardwired for your great-grandfather did this to my great-grandfather, so therefore I need to do it to your children.
Yeah, I don't understand that at all.
I don't.
Just let it go, man. Let it go.
There are better ways
to keep this up, and you can't keep it up forever, because eventually there won't be any people left.
Well, also when we're discussing these things historically, right? Like, the comment that I keep on making is, right, where do you start history? Because, well, this time, you came in October 7th. Yeah, but, we've been a prison, the largest outdoor prison for, X number of decades. Well, then you guys did this. Well, if we go back to, so there's always a point further back you can go to. Right. So it's a very, very, very tricky situation. So like I said, there's the opportunity. Like I said, it's a pivot point. We're hitting a pivot point. There's an opportunity for something really, if not really good. Sorry, I'm trying. This is my overall optimism. There's an opportunity for something really good to happen. There's this opportunity for something that could be markedly better, even if it's not great, to emerge from this. There's a genuine one that hasn't existed in a long time here. So in that sense, if you are celebratory and you are hopeful like this, and you are like, and even if you're just, even if it just becomes that replacing, it's going to be one set of butchers replacing a set of butchers, whenever a butcher falls, it's a good day. So you can take that and run with that, and don't let people make you feel guilty if that's your take on it, I guess. But yes, as we mentioned, there's so much history and there's so much involved, and so many things have gone so bad for so long, that it's easy to be just hardwired and programmed. That's like, oh, so what? It's just going to go to pot again, like it does every time.
Well,
they just
gotta
get it together or whatever, right? That attitude that people have.
You got to keep hope alive, though, because if you give up hope, you've lost everything at that point.
That's exactly it.
You got to hang on to hope. And I know it's difficult in times like this, but you absolutely have to, because once you give up hope, that's it. You've given up everything. You've given up your will to live. And hope is what keeps people alive in many cases. Now, I understand that hope can also be poisonous in many instances, because
there's false hope. And
exactly.
Sometimes you need to be a realist.
Yes, but you do have to hope for the best. And only you can determine what your best is for you. So, what's the best situation right now in Syria? I think what we're looking at could be the best situation that they've had in a very long time. And this new fellow, Mohammed okay, I can't remember his surname. I wrote it
Al-Jalani.
down. Thank you.
Abu Muhammad al-Jalani.
Thank you. I think, from what I've read about the man, I think he's probably the best choice in this situation to rule the nation, because it looks like he's going to become the ruler in power for the time being, until they can probably get themselves set up to have an election. Who knows? But he seems to be the one who actually does want peace. He wants to live together. He says, look, we're all in this part of the world together. We have to learn to live together. We have to learn to get along. Let's see what happens. I am hopeful, and I think a lot of people there are hopeful for the first time in, 20 years?
And for some of them, 50?
Yes.
If they lived under the thumb of his father?
Well, and how long has the Civil War been going on? 10, 12, 14 years?
Since 2011. Yeah.
2011. There you go.
Yeah, well, the
13 years.
democracy protests happened in 2011. They were crushed, and then the Civil War started in 2012.
There you go. So 12 years they've been under the, in the middle of a civil war, people losing their lives.
And that's what I'm thinking about. Everybody involved, even like this al-Jalani guy, right?
Mhm.
I mean, if everybody has been living under the terror
Mhm.
of the al-Assad regime since 1971, the last 24 years under Bashar himself, and of those 24 years under Bashar, the last 13 or 12 under civil war,
Yeah.
I'd want a frickin' break too.
And I think that,
Can we try something else, maybe, please?
I'm hopeful. I'm crossing my fingers that this man can bring them peace and can actually stabilize Syria. I've had friends who were stationed in Syria a number of years ago, and they said they absolutely loved it there. The people, wonderful. And they said, unfortunately, they were ruled by a dictator who, just would not allow for democracy. So let's see what happens, is all I can really say. And hopefully, like I said, they can actually maintain peace for the first time in 12 years.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, the al-Assad family, like I mentioned, is believed to be in Russia at the moment. Now, interestingly, the al-Assad family does have ties to the UK, because the First Lady of Syria was born, raised, and educated in London. Kremlin officials have not confirmed that they are in Russia, but Russia state media has mentioned that they are. So that's the assumption that people are working with. The most senior MP in the British Parliament states that it has received no request for asylum, but then again, given that she was born, raised, and educated in London, she, her husband, and her 3 children probably don't have to make an asylum request to move from Russia to London. He says nobody has discussed in Britain whether or not there would be moves to prevent them from entering Britain should they come.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where things stand with regard to that particular portion of it. He has also said that, as I mentioned, for the UK, they might have to change some laws because THS is designated as a terror group. The senior MP mentioned the leader of that group has distanced himself in a way from some of the things that have been said in the past. He's saying some of the right things about the protection of minorities, about respecting people's rights. So we'll look at that in the days to come. So there is an openness by Western nations that do have legislation to change to make it so that they can actually interact with this group to try to set up with the future for that to happen. So that is positive. So a little bit as to what happened on the ground over the course of the weekend, because I did not think, when I was taking notes over the course of the weekend, I thought for sure on Monday I would be telling you about how things are advancing and this and that. And it's like, oh, Damascus has fallen. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of fast. But as of Friday night and Saturday morning and afternoon, opposition parties at that point were saying that they were determined to take the capital. Quote, "We are heading to Damascus and we will meet in the square. Today, a total national liberation is being lived by Syrians. The spark of revolution was ignited in Haran. Those blessed with this honor must join forces with the Syrian revolutionaries under a collective national umbrella. We must take a patriotic position and seek the end of tyranny, reinforcing justice, equality, and dignity." Now, during the report, that quote was unattributed, but I would assume that this is Abu Mohammed al-Golani who said this. So again, we must take a patriotic position and seek the end of tyranny, reinforcing justice, equality, and dignity. Okay. Sounds good. Let's hope it. The Syrian rebels had captured the city of Hama, and they were entering Homs, and they were closing in on the outskirts of the capital of Damascus. Inspired by the success, another group of rebels, as from the south this time along Syria's border with Jordan, was making their way to the capital, creating the possibility for what's called a pincer movement, which was what would lead to, as I mentioned, to the sections controlled by the Alawites being cut off from each other. Those groups in the south took the city of Dura pretty fast, and it was Dura was symbolically important because it was the birthplace of the uprising against the regime back in 2011. So the pro-democracy orange movement started in that area back in 2011. So when they saw this happening, it's like, guys, we need to get in on this. So the border with Jordan was closed over the weekend, of course, because the Jordanians wanted to make sure that they were kept safe as well. As we mentioned earlier on, there were Syrian Kurdish forces in the east that were moving in, and they took down the Syrian government in the city of Ezor. So in this context, with all of that happening, if Homs were to fall, that would have been the tipping point event for the battle, letting know that Damascus was definitely going to fall, which was probably around the time where the Syrian government put out a statement saying that Assad hasn't fled, though people saw him. He hadn't been heard or seen of anywhere important, like around state media or in government buildings or stuff like that, for a while. By the way, the prime minister, I think, of Syria had been escorted to one of a Four Seasons hotel in the city, and that's where it was said that he was going to transfer power to the new rebel group. And the Syrian government then issued a statement later on saying that we intend to fully cooperate with any group the people choose to lead them. So I think that's an announcement of capitulation from the al-Assad family there, I would think. So yes, the fall of Homs was the city, if it got taken, that would create the situation that would prevent there being any territorial continuity between the regions that the Assad family controlled. 2,000 Syrian army soldiers had collected along the border with Iraq, inside the Iraqi border, allegedly to regroup. Don't think that that's going to happen now. According to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights Monitoring Group, Syrian and Russian forces withdrew from a region near the Israeli-controlled Golan Heights, and Syrian forces swept into the area. That's why Israel sent troops to the Golan Heights to perform training and rapid deployment exercises, as well as to reinforce the border zone with Syria. And as we learned this morning, take out some ammunition depots. And now, as Mr. Grizzly mentioned, even into Damascus, taking out allegedly chemical weapons depots. The Russian government, over the course of the weekend, had told their citizens to go. Iran, which had pledged support to al-Assad, had told the military personnel based in Damascus to leave over the course of the weekend. Those were a couple of signs that Damascus was probably going to fall. The Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, and I know we're not supposed to comment on looks, but the physical embodiment of the saying, hate rots you from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
He labeled opposition fighters terrorists and saying their capture of territory was illegal. Not that we care what that dried up bitter old prune has to say. Suck on it. The Syrian president. Sorry, you lost. So yeah, like I mentioned at the Doha Forum, the foreign ministers of Iran, Turkey, and Russia were meeting on the sidelines, so it wasn't part of the main forum. These were sidebar discussions and whatnot to try to discuss the situation in Syria. It seems that over the course of the weekend, more parties got involved in this discussion as they realized that things might be changing a lot more faster than we thought they were before we showed up for this part of this Gab Fest over the course of the weekend. So yes, as I mentioned, they were trying to convince Erdogan to stop the progress of the rebels, but Erdogan had already stated publicly that he was very, very, very much in favor of the rebellion progressing without incident in Damascus. And one final note on this. If you're having difficulty understanding celebration by the Syrians themselves, because it's like, you've got the darker lenses on. It's like, what are you celebrating for? You're just trading butchers for other butchers. Under the recently shootout dictator, an estimated 500,000 Syrians have died in the conflict since the civil war began.
500,000. That's big.
And I think there were 12 million Syrians that were displaced.
That sounds about right.
And some of the Syrians are so happy, some of them have already started returning home. It's like, where are you returning home to? You've got, yes.
Wow. Not much to return home to.
We're rebuilding.
Wow.
So it might also have an impact on nations like Germany, for example, because Germany, Angela Merkel had made a pledge to accept 1 million. I think it was, which everybody was really happy and good with at first until they weren't, which is why we have Alternative für Deutschland gaining popularity. There might be some people there who might be returning home. That were resigned, they say, Assad will be there forever. Germany's our life now, but now have another option. There are people returning home that haven't seen family members in 8 years.
Yeah, and we have a lot of Syrian refugees here in Canada, so it makes one big question: what's going to happen here? Will some people, as you well know, have made new lives for themselves here? Do they just walk away from that? Do they go
some
back
might
to their old lives? You're right. Some may, and that does happen in situations.
I mean, home is always home, right? Especially when you don't leave because you want to.
You
There's always a part of you that wonders.
Yeah. So I hear you.
Right. I mean, I think for myself, if something ever happened here and it's like, whoops, okay, hello, Norway, here I come. And then 15 years later, it's like, yeah, it could be. I mean, I could say, well, you know what? I've got a life here. I know my friends here now. This is, I'm Norwegian now. Right. Oh, wait a minute. Whoa. I thought I was going to be Norwegian for the rest of it, but I have a chance to be Canadian again? Oh, wait a minute. I need to think about that.
Yeah. So it's
right. I can see that going on in people. I can see how that situation could happen relatively easy. Now, Canada's most famous and probably favorite, potentially most delicious Syrian, Tariq, owner of Peace by Chocolate. I love this man.
Seems like a really good human being.
I just love this man. It's like I've invited him a couple of times like this. I mean, he's very mesmerized. Whether or not he's seen the tweet, and I'd probably have to write the company directly. But every now and then, when it comes to immigration, right? Immigration's good,
Mm.
right? Hands down. But every now and then, there are certain people arrive, and you're like, "Thank you for choosing Canada."
Oh yeah, yeah.
We are really better off with you here. This is such a man. Quote, on Syria's rebirth, I am filled with so much hope, and I'm aware that the road ahead for the country is not easy. I will be on CBC, and then I will be on CBC News to discuss the fall of Assad's regime on the most significant day in Syria's recent history. I will be looking for segments of that, hopefully, so that we can present them to you on a future show, because he's just a lovely soul.
Oh yes.
Love that man. And through his company, Peace by Chocolate, they actually put out a tweet with a nice, beautiful. You know what? I'm actually going to send the link to you, Mr. Grizzly, to this one, because I would like the kids to see it.
Okay.
But he sent out a message, and this is interesting because they're sending out a message under your own name, which he did, which was the first thing. But this one is under the Peace by Chocolate name.
Oh, okay.
So his company.
Right.
As the brutal regime that killed many of our family members, kidnapped tens of us and hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians, and forced our family to be scattered in over 27 countries has fallen, Syrians everywhere deserve the joy and peace they've been denied for decades. Since the 1960s, the oppressive rule silenced millions, robbing countless lives. These losses are wounds that never fully heal. But today there is hope. Hope that those who were detained, our brothers, sisters, friends, and neighbors, are finally being freed to see the sun and the blue skies and smell the jasmine and the fresh air for the first time in so long. Hope that justice will come for those whose voices were silenced. Hope that Syria, our beloved homeland, can begin to heal and rebuild. When our family arrived in Canada as refugees, we carried with us the weight of the pain and loss, but we also brought with us the belief that brighter days could still lie ahead. Now, as Syria steps into a new chapter, we dream of a future where fear is gone, a Syria where families can thrive, children can dream without limits, and every piece of the country's shattered past comes together to build something stronger. This is just the beginning, and it won't be easy. But Syrians are resilient, and the country deserves every ounce of dignity. We're praying for healing, for stability, for peace.
I don't
And then,
think he's going to be heading anywhere, to be honest with you. I think he's going to stay put.
And the logo for those, or the visual for those who are listening at home, is a very beautiful pale blue background with a peace sign in the lower right-hand corner, and the words, "Freedom is so precious, and today our home country," in big letters, "Syria is finally free," for the first time in over 50 years.
Put that on the screen in just a sec here. Here we go.
This
For the
This
first time
is
in
the
over 50 years. Yeah.
This is the stuff, this feeling right there that this guy, Tariq Haddad, and the people from Peace by Chocolate. It's like, that's the feeling, that's the stuff.
Well, let's
Why? That's one of these reasons why I love politics and democracy. Because stuff like this can happen. Sorry, Mr. Grizzly, I cut you off.
Let's see what happens. People are hopeful for the first time in a very long time. So, hope, like I said, without hope, you've got nothing. But at the same time, hope can be a little bit poisonous too. So let's just sit back and watch, because that's all we can do in this part of the world. And hopefully things play out for the best. We don't know. We have no way of knowing what's going to happen. But I do believe that things will improve. I do believe that that's their new leader, for want of a better term, because I don't know if he's going to be a president, a prime minister, or just a military junta, what the case may be. I believe he actually does want peace. I believe he actually does want to get along with everybody because he realizes there's plenty of people in this world and we can all live together if we choose to set aside our differences and look for our similarities. Something somebody said to me years ago, a dear friend said, you'll never understand my culture because you're different than me and blah, 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 blah. And I said, why do you say that? And she said, well, because of this, that, and the other thing. And I said, yeah, here's the thing. I've lived in those places that you speak of. I have experienced that culture firsthand. Don't tell me what I can or cannot understand. And she realized that her statement was not a healthy one to begin with, but also that I was right. Look, I'll never be French Canadian, but I've lived in Quebec. I've lived in Chicoutimi. I've spent countless years of my life going back and forth to Montreal. I understand Quebecois culture, even though I'm not Quebecois. I understand it well. I understand Newfoundland's culture. I lived there for 3 years. I lived in New Brunswick. I've lived in Alberta. I understand the different cultural differences that we have in this country, even though some of them aren't that radical. I mean, we're a big damn nation, so we're going to have cultural differences across the board. But I think living in a city, a multicultural city, like Ottawa is, it wasn't always. 30 years ago, 40 years ago, it was pretty bland. It's changed an awful lot since then. It's not as culturally diverse as Toronto is, but then again, the GTA is what, 6 million people? And it's been bringing in people for all over the world for the last 50 years. Ottawa brings in people from all over the world too, largely those who have unique skill sets, whether it's in IT or government relations or medical or science fields, because we do have a lot of those institutions here in this city. And because of that, our diverse city is becoming more diverse, and I'm thankful for it because, 40 years ago, there might have been 2 places to get a good shawarma. Might have been one good Indian restaurant. There was always Chinese restaurants. I'm saying the food has gotten much better, that it's not all whitewashed anymore is what I'm getting at.
Yes. Just a couple more words on this from Tariq Haddad, because, as things were developing, he was writing. But this is another one that he wrote that I really like. As this regime finally begins to crumble, Syrians everywhere deserve all the joy and peace in the world after over 50 years of oppression and injustice. There is nothing to describe the feelings of millions of Syrians tonight and over the past week. Those who lived through the horrors of a criminal regime which killed over 600,000 people, including many of my family members. They took people from the streets, locked them away without reason, and silenced their voices forever. The pain of losing them never leaves us. But today there's hope. Hope that the people who have been detained, our brothers, sisters, friends, and neighbors, will be freed. Hope that justice will be served for those who were taken from us too soon. Hope my home country by birth can begin to heal and rebuild. When my family and I came to Canada, we carried the weight of all we had lost, but step by step we found the strength to move forward. With the help of kind people and a belief that brighter days were ahead, we built a new life. This was never easy, but it taught us that no matter how much we lost, we can always find a way to start again. I dream of a Syria where the fear is gone and people can live without looking over their shoulders. This is the beginning of a new chapter. It won't be easy, but Syrians are strong. Syria deserves a future with hope, one piece, one step, one dream at a time. And again, said, I hope those one dreams at a time all come true.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Bob Rae, Canada's ambassador to the UN, stated, the Syria Accountability Mechanism, based in Geneva, has been gathering invaluable evidence of war crimes and atrocities. To this can now be added more evidence that will allow a process of justice and accountability to unfold. It is both exciting and daunting, but it is a challenge that we have to meet. So they're already talking about what happens with regard to dealing with war crimes that may have been committed by the Assad family. Now, he had also, as I mentioned, put out a tweet saying that he was cheering for people. So, in the broader context, he said the fight for democracy is happening in real time in Georgia, Moldova, Romania, Myanmar, Ukraine, and Syria, all driven by the passion, bravery, and deep commitment of courageous citizens. May we be worthy of their courage and stay the course while the bullies and authoritarians regroup for the next fight. And so that was some of the tweet itself that set a few people off in stating, like this, everything is crap. And Yashar Ali, which is another account that I follow here, this is I think they write for the HuffPost and the New York Magazine, put it really well. Syrians have the right to celebrate the fall of the House of Assad without being lectured by non-Syrians about the reality of their future. Maybe some of you need a reminder, but Assad wasn't just your run-of-the-mill dictator. Not only did he run a police state of a frightening degree, but he also burned down his country to stay in power, destroying entire cities and killing hundreds of thousands of Syrians to keep his regime in place. Let people who have had family members murdered, tortured, and imprisoned by the state have a moment of relief and celebration. It doesn't mean they're naive about Syria's future. It's a little condescending to be sitting there and going like, well, you don't know, you guys don't know what you're in for. They know.
Oh yes.
So there are no good guys here. Yes, sometimes there are no good guys. But even among the bad guys, some guys are badder than others. So, but I liked this one because it's like, for the love of anything out there, just let people have their damn moment. Jeez. There's always got to be one that rushes in to poop all over the party. Well, have you thought about this? Wah, wah, wah. It's like, we have tomorrow to think about that. Today, we're thinking about this because this shit is good. Let people have their moment, man.
Well,
it's like Taylor Swift wins the award. It's like, I'm gonna let you talk in a minute, but Beyonce, it's like, let the woman have her moment. You can make the point about Beyonce. Nothing wrong with that, but let her have her moment. She just won. It's like, but first, me. It's like, my God. Let the Syrian people have their moment. Reality will still be there. Oh, man. I tell you. All right.
In other news,
a
really good political cartoon for you here from Michael Deatter. I'll put this on the screen right now. And for those of you listening, it's Donald Trump says Canada could become the 51st state. And to his immediate left is California, New York, Maine, and Vermont saying, not if we leave. So will these states secede and join Canada? I mean, that rumor's been long held, and there are many Americans who would be fine with that. Many would object, of course, but there's 40 million people in California, 42 million people in Canada. We could literally double our population overnight if California were to join. But we'd also want like Oregon and Washington to join as well, because then it would be a straight path to California.
Absolutely. But I mean, it's, again, if things are going to shift, if things are really going to shift. It's like, one of the things about the way the United States is put together is that the states have a lot of autonomy.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
If they want to go, so, and while there's a lot of people that was like, no, we'll never need to do that. A United States where women have no choice and the Supreme Court applies the law on a very fluctuating slide rule, depending on whether or not the government of the day has a D or an R, where elections may become merely performative. Where you can't get contraception, where you can't get married to you. That's a different America also that people thought, well, that'll never happen either.
Mm-hmm.
So that could change some minds about wanting, yes, we could be looking quite attractive all of a sudden in that situation. But that whole 51st state thing came up again, right? Because it was mentioned at the dinner, and we said, oh yeah, he was obviously joking and whatnot. And then we were not going to give that much attention to it. And then he mentioned it again when it comes to tariffs. For some reason, he believes that a trade imbalance. Well, he believes. Let me put it this way: he says he believes, because I don't believe he actually believes half of the stuff. Because remember, he's the just say it is guy, and we'll take care of the rest. So I don't believe he believes a significant portion of the bullshit he puts out.
Of course not.
He likes to stir the pot. So this whole position of that trade imbalances, he thinks that if there's a trade imbalance, which means that one country is buying more from another, it means that if the Americans are buying more from us than we are buying from them, that they are subsidizing us in some way. And if they're going to subsidize us, then why don't we just join and become a state? Right.
He thinks they're subsidizing us to the tune of $100 billion. I'd like to know where he gets that figure.
Yeah. Somebody made a point the other day. It's like, it says, if you want to end this trade talk right away, it's like, 25% tariff on everything Canadian. Okay, 10,000% tariff on all the uranium. Good luck eating. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure it's not that simple. Right? But I get the feeling. I understand the feeling and the sentiment behind that. But yeah, so that's coming out again. Again, I don't know whether or not it's bluster, it's blah, or whatnot. But what would be really interesting, however, given the way that our premiers are falling all over themselves, it would be really nice. Because remember when we showed you Danielle Smith and Doug Ford's competing audition tapes for Fox News? There was one thing they had eerily in common. And when they were asked about Donald Trump's, skippy air quotes, joke about Canada being the 51st state, both their response was, oh gosh, oh that Trump. He has such a great sense of humor. Yeah, because he's really world renowned for his sense of humor. Trumple Finskin?
Guy can't
Sense of humor.
Joke.
Okay. I would love for journalists to put a microphone up one of their two noses today and say, so, still think that 51st state comment was just a joke? Deadbeat Danny? Dev has Dougie Donuts? My inquiring mind would really love to know if they still believe that Donald Trump is such a jokester today.
Well, one would assume.
Because he wasn't laughing during that interview. He was pretty upset that we were being, quote unquote, subsidized.
Mm-hmm.
Can anybody ask the painfully obvious follow-up question, please? Next time they see them? Because if I were a journalist, I would definitely be looking forward to the next media scrum to ask that specific question.
Oh, yes.
Have your views evolved? No big preamble.
Yeah, he doesn't believe
You were asked. You said he was joking. He mentioned it again. Didn't seem to be joking. Have your views on this evolved?
He doesn't believe in evolution.
Well, yeah. But I mean, talking about Danielle and Doug here. Because if I were the leader of a province, who thought he was just joking, and I went on the record publicly, not just in Canada, but internationally. I would probably want the word today out there not to be, he's just a kidder. See, here's the thing with Trump. He doesn't do everything he says he's going to do.
No.
But he does some of the things he says he's going to do. And you never know which ones they're going to be. So you have to take him seriously. You have to take him seriously. He's an idiot. He's a malignant narcissist. He's all those things. But he's an idiot and a malignant narcissist with the power of the purse of the United States behind him. Yeah. The military behind him. So you got to pay attention. You got to take him seriously.
Sadly, we have to pay attention.
And that's the thing with Trump. You got to prepare for 300,000 eventualities, and most of them he won't act on. But the one that he does, holy fuck, he's going to come at you. So you got to be ready for it. Shock and awe, overwhelming power, domination, right? I was listening to an interview with Angela Merkel, like just reminding of the time that he brought the dog into a meeting. She had been bitten by a dog once. They asked her, is there anything that you need? It says, I would prefer that there were, like, if there's like any dogs, I prefer there's not, because I was bitten once. The next thing you know, she's in a meeting. It's like, meet my German Shepherd or something. It's like, and she says, okay, I see what this is. Right. And she knew that in that moment, like, even though she was afraid and whatnot like this, she had to act like she wasn't, because clearly, and then apparently several years later, it was like, Putin apparently in a book or something like, was like, Angela, really, really, believe me, I didn't mean to intimidate you. I just wanted to show you my dog. Yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Touch my puppy. My puppy wants you to touch it. Mm-hmm. So this is domination. The newest one is, have you seen the new handshake?
No, I have not.
Oh, yeah, with Macron, because Donald Trump was at the opening, well, not the opening, but the reawakening of the Notre Dame Cathedral. And I'm sitting there like, what the hell is Trump doing there? He doesn't care about church. He has a new fragrance out called Fight, Fight, Fight for men and women.
So he's got to promote it.
Yeah. France, perfumes. Come on.
Yeah.
Right?
I saw cons were screaming, why isn't Trudeau there? I'm like, because he had a prior commitment here in Canada.
The 35th anniversary of Polytechnique and Premier Legault was already going.
It's like,
for Canada. It's like we have 13 premiers for a reason and a governor general.
Mm-hmm.
Because amazingly, and hold on, Trudeau deranged people. It's like more than one global event or national event of importance can happen
at the same time
on the same day.
Yeah. They fail to understand. Why isn't he there? Why isn't he there? Trump's there. He should be there. Well, he had a prior commitment.
Trump was there to sell fragrance.
Yeah.
And to have a pre-meeting with Macron like Trudeau had with
Trump.
Right. And here's the thing. I finally got some clarity on this finally. Because the invitation for the dinner happened during that first call. So when Trump put on that thing saying, hey, maybe we could do 25% tariffs, and then everybody in Canada turned around and said, 25, you said 10. 90 minutes later, Trump, let's have a chat. Well, apparently during that phone call, it was the prime minister who said, maybe we should have dinner sometime and talk about it. And it was Trump that turned around and said, how about Friday?
Okay.
Now Trump is on TV going, it's like, well, so Trudeau was on a plane within 15 seconds of me saying, ha, ha, ha. It's like this trying to make this. I said, come over, and I came some. But really what happened was Trudeau said, well, how about dinner? And Trump said, great idea. Glad I had it. Why don't you come Friday? And Trudeau saying, hey, if you're going to give me 3 hours of exclusive time in your ear, which we know that's the only thing that matters with Trump is either what you say while you're on TV or what you say when you're in his ear. I'm going to take it. Wheels up, bitches. Let's go. It's like, I mean, like I said, it was kind of badass But that's how it went down, according to reports. This is Rosie Barton and whatnot. We're getting like the down plays now, the phone calls, whatnot. So our prime minister suggested dinner.
Well,
Trump said, "How about Friday?" Prime Minister said, "Sure, I'll be there."
Trump will take credit for things that he likes to say he invented. I remember watching an interview and he says, "Well, we call this priming the pump. I came up with that the other day, priming the pump." I'm like, "No, you didn't. That's been around for like 200 years. I came up with it the other day."
Words. I know all the best words. Such beautiful words. Tremendous words. Tariff. Tariff is the most beautiful word of them all.
Well, a friend of mine used to think, "Oh no, Trump's a smart guy. Don't kid yourself. He's a smart guy." And then during COVID, Trump said, "Well, if we stop testing, we don't have any, the numbers won't go up if we stop testing. So then, it looks better." And he went, "What? This man's an idiot." I'm like, "I told you he was an idiot.
But
if we don't have a test, we don't have a result. So let's stop testing so that way the numbers won't increase." How is that changing who is sick and who isn't? It isn't.
Let's not let the cruise ship dock, because if we let it dock, their numbers are going to be reported as in America. It's like, come on, man. Like, but that type of thinking is dangerous because it does spread and take root. Do you know where it's being applied right now, Mr. Grizzly? Sorry, this is a little aside, but we'll get back to where we were. You know where it's being applied?
Autism and vaccines? I don't know.
No, remember that story I read to you about a woman, I think it was in Georgia, who had a miscarriage or something like that, and she needed a DNC, but couldn't get it because DNCs are sometimes used for abortions.
Right.
Like this, and then she nearly bled out.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, and then there's a couple of other people that had died. ProPublica had done 3 profiles. Well, it seems that in states like Texas and stuff like that, they are just not collecting any maternal mortality data anymore because the numbers are so good since these laws have passed. Nobody's dying.
Yeah, bullshit. We know that's bullshit.
What's our maternal mortality rate for the last year?
You don't report on
it. Me if I know.
Don't log it. Don't log it.
We're supposed to keep that data. Why would we keep that data? What purpose would that serve? Won't help us. They're just not collecting the data. So they die and they don't collect the data. They just become invisible. Never happened. Because they're pro-life. As I said, these types of ideas, even when they're mentioned out loud and this, oh my God, what a freaking idiot, there's always some person back there who's thinking, who's not as much of an idiot as, hey, great idea. How could I use that?
Very true.
So we did keep on collecting the data about COVID. We just stopped collecting at that time. But a couple of years later, let's just quietly not collect the data about women who are dying.
Well, it doesn't suit their agenda.
Bad ideas said by stupid people often get picked up by not as stupid people who find a way to make them work. That's why I often want people to shut up. It's like, don't even put it out there in the universe. Somebody's going to run with that. Shut up. So yeah. I'm not, again, another thing to destabilize us, because here we are, right? It's like we're trying to deal with the tariffs, and now he's talking about trade deficits. And it's just like, trade deficits go up and down with the value of the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
With needs, if the United States suddenly, I don't know, there was a project that came on and it's like, oh my God, suddenly we need like 5 more million barrels of oil per day all of a sudden, like this. Well, that'll change the trade imbalance all of a sudden, right? I mean, like the employment numbers in the United States, for example, in October, were like only showed, I think, 36,000 jobs created. And people go, well, gee, normally it's like the 200,000. Why so low? Well, we had 2 natural disasters and a strike at Boeing.
And didn't we lose 25,000 manufacturing jobs in the province of Ontario recently?
Mm-hmm. But I mean, there are shocks that sometimes happen, right? It's like sometimes it's, oh my God, this whole village got destroyed. We need a whole bunch of lumber. Let's call Canada. Whoops, all of a sudden you bought X number of $1 million in lumber more, hundreds of $1 million in lumber more in 1 year than you would in any other year. That'll shift a trade imbalance. I mean, the whole constant, right? But the thing here is he's got us destabilized with the first one, and we're all mobilizing. Now let's throw another thing in to make them dance to. Let's make them dance to 2 tunes at one time. So, but when he's talking, if you want an equivalent, when he's talking trade imbalance, it's the same type of stupid BS as when Alberta talks equalization. Doesn't matter how many times you tell them the equalization, no province has ever in Canadian history, even once, ever paid into equalization. Ever.
No.
You can say it. You can show them the documents. It doesn't stop them from saying it. They will say it anyway because it serves them. This is the same damn thing. You can tell them again and again and again and again. That's not how trade balances work. That's not how tariffs work. He doesn't care. It does not matter. The truth, reality does not matter. It's say, how do you negotiate with a liar?
Well, I don't think you can. I mean,
you can't. Like this, you just, like I said, it's political rodeo. You get on the bull and you just try to hold on for 8 seconds. As it goes this way and that way and this way and right? You just, it's what it is. It's his thing. It's what he loves to do. And because we don't know which ones he's going to act on or not, we have to treat all of them like they're serious, which means that we blow so much money and time and energy and whatnot preparing contingency plans, and it distracts us from taking care of ourselves. That's why this guy is so goddamn exhausting. Because it's just non-stop with him. And that's why we can't run off and start going, every time he says something, because he says a lot of things. You have to take him seriously when he says something, but you got to focus on the shit he does, not the shit he says. Or else we'll never get through the next 4 years. He's just going to exhaust us into the ground. All right. Couple of other things today. There is a new report from the Canadian Cancer Society that says that cancer is costing individual Canadians billions of dollars each year in transportation, medical devices, and medication costs. Joanna Nicolau, who's one of the authors of the report, says that across Canada, patients and caregivers have spent approximately $7.5 billion in 2024 on cancer-related expenses. Quote, for the average patient in Canada, their cost is $33,000 over the course of their lifetime. The report also says that cancer-related costs are expected to grow 20% over the next decade. So we have socialized Medicare, but not everything is covered. Far from everything is covered. And given the sheer number of people, percentage of people who over the course of their lifetime acquire cancer, whether it's a treatable one or isn't, probably would be a good investment if we're talking about affordability to put some money into that. $7.5 billion. And expenses taken on by families. We're already going through a lot when there's cancer going on. You want an issue that people can vote on? There's one. Just sitting there. Other things going on here. For the first time in about 2 months, the Conservatives will get the chance to make the case for why the Prime Minister and his government no longer deserve to have the confidence of the House of Commons, courtesy of the ruling made by Speaker Greg Ferguson earlier this year that has put the ongoing privilege debate on hold for the next 4 sitting days to allow MPs to wrap up the current supply cycle. So there's probably going to be some debate about that. The supply motion, the estimates, when they do happen, are a confidence vote in and of themselves. So it is an opportunity for the Conservatives to try to bring the government down. Of course, the NDP has stated that it is not going to happen. According to iPolitics, they say that if they survive this final full week of the fall sitting, he and his fellow frontbenchers can at least take some comfort in knowing that if they can make it to Wednesday without coming out on the wrong side of a non-confidence vote, they should be clear to finish out the final stretch with little risk of being forced to make a last-minute detour to Rito Hall before the holidays. As of right now, the end-of-year supplementary estimates are now on track to get the green light from the House of Commons by close of business on Tuesday, which will also mark the end of the current supply cycle. And as per long-standing parliamentary protocols, it is automatically designated a question of confidence, although not the only one that the Liberals will have to survive over the next 2 days. This afternoon, MPs will vote on a Conservative-initiated motion that doesn't just call on the House of Commons to withdraw from the government, but incorporates the very same words employed by New Democratic leader Jagmeet Singh when he announced his party would be pulling the plug on its supply and confidence deal with the government in August, which is all but guaranteed to go down to defeat. The party have made it clear they're not going to play, quote, Poilievre's games, as Singh told reporters last week. So there will be confidence votes on opposition day motions, and of course the estimates will be a confidence vote itself. So there might be 2 or 3 opportunities here between now and Wednesday. All of them are indeed. Now, the other thing that is happening is that the finance minister is supposed to deliver the fall economic statement. So Pierre Poilievre changed the channel the other day from the fact that his last few sorties haven't been all that great for him. Stood up to a mic.
Say the least.
And, sorry, let me put it this way. Yeah, sorry, let me put it this way. Came down from the stairs of Parliament, Pierre the Magnanimous, to belly up to a microphone and cameras and pronounce that he, and he alone, by his grace alone, would allow the filibuster that he has put in place to cease for totality of 2 complete hours, so that the Minister of Finance may have the opportunity to present in the House her fall economic statement, during which she will tell us for sure how it is she blew past all the guardrails that she had set up for herself in the previous budget. I will allow you the grace of 2 hours so that you could come into the House of Commons and face plant and curse plat. I am so magnanimous.
Yeah.
Christopher Freeland told him where he could stuff that. The thing about the fall economic statement is that it doesn't need to be delivered in the House. There's like no law whatsoever. She could deliver that from anywhere. It's like, yes, if there's anything money that needs to be voted on, that needs to be tabled in the House, but the statement can be delivered any damn where. It's just nice to do it in the backdrop of the House because it looks all official, but she can go to a business. She could go to a manufacturing factory. She could go to a restaurant. She could go anywhere and deliver it. She didn't need Pierre to make that. Now, the reason Pierre probably did that is because he just saw Greg Fergus say, okay, well, yeah, these 4 opposition days, yeah, we're doing supply estimates for the muggers. Sorry. So the fall economic statement is kind of a big deal. I guess the speaker could decide. So, no, we're making time for this. So Pierre decided to try to preempt the speaker and said, I'm going to allow this. And so she was not impressed. That was Pierre's latest gambit to try to turn the channel back to himself and try to control the narrative. That one, that effort might have needed a little more political Viagra. Didn't quite happen for him. Yeah. So who knows what it is that he's going to try. Pardon?
She's much smarter than he is. If they go tete-a-tete, she will eviscerate him.
I know, man. Oh, jeez. It seems that in British Columbia, there was a little bit of an incident here, according to Darren Major of the CBC. Liberal MP Chandra, I'm going to get this names here. Liberal MP Chandra Arya is accusing his caucus colleague Sukh Dhaliwal of threatening him in the House of Commons on Friday. The incident allegedly took place after Dhaliwal, MP for Surrey Newton in BC, attempted to get unanimous consent from the House on a motion to condemn the 1984 anti-Sikh riots in India as, quote, genocide. A number of MPs, including Arya, who represents the Ontario, called out, quote, no, before Dhaliwal was able to finish reading his motion, denying it unanimous support. Arya later claimed he was the only one to say, quote, no. About 20 minutes later, Arya stood up in the House on a point of order and said Dhaliwal, quote, threatened him on his way out of the Commons chamber. He also said another unnamed MP, quote, aggressively accosted him in the lobby. Quote, as a member of Parliament, I should be able to express my opinion, my views freely in the House, and I should not feel threatened by my fellow members, Arya said. This has reached out to both Arya and Dhaliwal for clarification on what happened Friday, but neither has responded. More than 3,000 Sikhs died in the anti-Sikh riots that followed the assassination of Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi by her 2 Sikh bodyguards. The Indian government has consistently rejected any push to recognize the anti-Sikh riots as a genocide and has said it estimates the death toll at 2,800. Dhaliwal later posted on X, formerly Twitter, about his motion, saying, quote, that sadly, some Conservative MPs and one Liberal MP opposed it. Arya also posted about the House incident on X, calling Hindu Canadians to push their MPs to oppose such, quote, divisive motions. So the Hindu-Sikh battle is now coming to our House of Commons.
Great. Just
where, again, I understand the symbolic nature, but this type of motion and resolution helps nobody in Canada find jobs, delivers no health care, educates no one. Why are we wasting? I don't want to say wasting. These things are culturally important, but they are not critical to the function of governing Canada, which is the primary mandate. So many distractions. Quote, there is no guarantee I will be in the House to block it the next time or any other member from any political party attempts to bring this motion forward, Arya wrote in a social media post. I urge all Hindu Canadians to act now, and why do you feel it is your duty to oppose that, sir? Friday's incident comes at a time of heightened tensions between and the other MP. Why do you think it's your duty to present that as a motion in the House of Commons? There's no guarantee. So I urge all Hindu Canadians to act now, he says. Friday's how?
How? Precisely how?
What? Take your seat in the House of Commons and vote for you if you're not good. Like, how? On this specific thing. That's not a positive line here. I urge all Hindu Canadians to act now. It was a motion. It has no bearing of law, no teeth. It was a motion. It's symbolic. It needs unanimous consent to be discussed. You yelled no. You were the only one. You bragged about it. All it took to completely nullify the threat was you to stand in the place where you do your job and say, no. What action do you want taken? And not only was that all it took, you did that. But what about the next time? You stand up and say no again. What if I'm not there? You tap one of your fellow MPs by proxy and make a deal? Or it passes and it's a motion and it has no teeth and nothing happens as a result of it, so you live with it. Because ultimately it has no consequence. What action? Friday's incident comes at a time of heightened tensions between the Sikh and Hindu communities in Canada, because that's the thing that we need right now. Yet two more groups going at each other. Because we don't have enough of that going on right now. Jeez. Last month, 3 men were charged after violent clashes took place between protesters in Brampton and Mississauga, including incidents outside a Hindu temple and a Sikh Gurdwara. Arya has been an outspoken advocate for the Hindu community, has consistently spoken out against what he calls Khalistani extremists, a reference to a movement pushing for an independent Sikh homeland in northern India. A statement from Global Affairs Canada at the time said Arya, quote, traveled to India on his own initiative and was not representing the government of, in August, Arya traveled to India and met with current Prime Minister Narendra Modi. A statement from Global Affairs Canada at the time said Arya traveled to India on his own initiative and was not representing the government of Canada.
Interesting. Yeah.
Hindu nationalism has become the dominant political ideology in India in the past decade under Modi, whose party has been accused of aggravating religious fault lines and steadily eroding the secular principles enshrined in India's constitution. I wonder if Mr. Arya will be asked to testify at the National Public Safety and Public Security Committee. So Public Safety and National Security Committee. Like Patrick Brown did. I guess, and not only, right, the voting no, but bringing the tradition of aggressively accosting people, because I think it's in India's parliament every now and then there's a few of them that we see people break out into fistfights.
It happens frequently. Not able to contain their emotions.
So we're going to bring that here to our House of Commons too?
Well, I mean, they are a sword length apart.
Yes. So come on, man. You need to calm down. Calm down. Nobody makes good decisions when they're hot-headed. We elect you to be above this. To be able to put the individual passions aside, or at least if you're going to have a passion, allow it to fuel your work positively in terms of giving you energy and drive. But for the betterment of the lives and for the greater well-being of Canadian citizens. That's the task, and that's the mandate. Always for the betterment of the lives and for the improvement of the well-being of Canadian citizens. I think sometimes our elected representatives in their quest to, I will not say pander in this case, but to speak to certain communities, forget the latter part. Not just for the betterment of one cause or one group, but of Canadians. All of us.
Well, you do need to remember.
And I'm not saying that.
Pierre Poilievre and his conservatives don't represent Canadians. They only represent conservatives because that's what they say all the time.
Right.
Every other party leader says Canadians will be here. We will be here for you. And they're like, we're here for the conservatives. Conservatives will be here for you, not Canadians. They see themselves apart. They don't see themselves as part of this country. They don't see themselves as part of the greater community. They see themselves as better than us, that they know better than us, and piss on the rest of us.
Yep. So, and when I'm saying like for the benefit of all Canadians, I'm not saying like it doesn't have to directly benefit me, as in like there's a check coming to my account or something. But
if it benefits my neighbor,
when
it's going to help
things
me in some weird way too. Spillover
exactly
effect, pebble in the pond.
If we decide in Canada that even though that is going on over there, we are not going to bring that here, that if we do discuss the issue and what it is that we can do to help or whatnot like this, we do that, but without bringing the fire of that passion, particularly in a way that can be channeled negatively, because then we all benefit. All of us benefit from that. All of us benefit from a more peaceful, harmonious society where different people who don't get along elsewhere do get along here. We all benefit from that.
Well, and you will find that oftentimes when somebody comes here from another part of the world that may have been war-torn or they were religiously persecuted or whatever the case may be, that when they get here, they just want to live in peace and harmony. They want to be able to practice their religion if they have one or if they observe. They want to live in peace and harmony. And they've discovered that Canada's pretty good at it. We've got a long ways to go to make it better, but we're pretty good at it.
We do better than most.
Oh, I got a call coming in.
Pardon?
I got a call coming in here. I got a call coming in. I'm going to call him back shortly.
Like that. One more.
Okay. It's fine.
Oh, okay. You don't need to take it. Okay.
No.
So go on then. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that, Mr. Grizzly?
No, that's it. No,
okay.
That's it.
Okay. One last bit, not about Canada before we go. But as you noticed, in South Korea last week, the president tried to impose martial law. Right. And like, everybody got up and said, oh hell no, that we are not playing that today, like this. And then Parliament got together and, rescinded, nullified that order. The impeachment vote on the president took place, and unfortunately he survived it, but not because he got the votes, but because his party, which is the largest bloc, and doesn't have enough people to actually save him because it's a 2/3 vote, so 200 of the 300 seats. So he doesn't have 200, at least 200 to save, but the opposition parties don't have 200 as well, unless some of the members of his party have enough of him and decide to vote with them. So it seems that the vote didn't take place because there was a walkout and therefore there was no quorum. So the opposition is going to vow to try again. But polls are showing that Seven does believe he should be impeached. So I don't sure how much time left. So that was one thing. In Romania, something happened as well, because we mentioned that there was the first round of votes to determine the two that would go off in the runoff vote, which was supposed to be planned for this weekend on the 8th. And that was another thing that we were going to do, that maybe Beaver was going to do in Toronto, was go to the consulate and vote. Well, it turns out there was no vote, because the results of the first round, according to Romania's constitutional court, have been nullified. They have been declared invalid after accusations of, get this, Russian interference in support of the far-right candidate Călin Georgescu. Yes, Călin Georgescu, who was pretty much unknown, who waged a heavy campaign, very TikTok-heavy campaign, whatnot, came out of nowhere to pick up 20-something% of the vote in the first round and become the leading of the two candidates. Super pro-Russian, all that kind of stuff, when Romania not particularly fond of Russia. So how did this guy come out of nowhere? Well, seems he got some help. The court annulled the results, citing evidence that Moscow ran a campaign promoting Georgescu on social media.
How convenient.
So in Korea, President, who I have confirmed is conservative and was a member of the IDU, don't know if his name got scrubbed from the website very quickly because Stephen Harper tends to like to do that. Yeah, tried to impose martial law, and the other elected representatives and the people said hell no. And Russian interference happened, and they didn't need to investigate 7 years before they finally had a commission to do something about it. The Constitutional Court just annulled the results.
Yeah, pretty straightforward.
We can learn a few things. I'm just saying we can learn a few things from South Korea and Romania. I hope we are paying attention.
We will. Do you actually think we will?
I don't know, but it's like we just saw the United States south of us. What happens when you decide to process Queen something to death after an insurrection? Romania, it's like they declare with our election and all the results. South Korea, this Father Market tried to follow martial law. Screw that.
Yeah.
Hit hard, hit fast. Hit hard, hit fast. That's the lesson. If they try to pull that shit, hit hard, hit fast. Mr. Grizzly, do we have a show?
We do indeed, sir.
All right, kids and cubs. That's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember that sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. And you are peeps and poops. And kids and cubs have the mouths from which we want the words to come. So tell your fellow kids and cubs and peeps and poops all about us. We really appreciate it when you do. Now, if you would like to support us in other ways, like for example, by going down to our YouTube page and clicking like, share, and subscribe to add to our numbers, that would make us very happy. And I'm sure that Kits, Elaine, and Cassie would very much approve. So True North Eager Beaver Media, go to our YouTube page, click on all our buttons, and get us a little happy. Thank you so much. And if you would like to help us in yet other ways, well, then there is our coffee page where you will find our tip jar. And while Mr. Grizzly's distracted, our Eager Beaver Emergency Hydration Fund, where you can, I had to, where you can, if you have a little bit of money to help us because you like the show and you would like to encourage us to do more, we would be very grateful for your donation because it helps us underwrite the costs, actually, is what we do with it, of bringing this show to you. But if, like Kit Wendy, who sent us a little something and said, "Hey, gents, as always, much love and appreciation for your daily insights, keeping it real and keeping us Canadian peeps well informed. Thanks for the good work you do. Hope the changes in the new year go well for your channel. I'll still be here with you." Smiley face and a thumbs up. Cheers with 2 beers. Clink. Thank you so much, Kit Wendy. And those are some lovely sentiments expressed. And thank you for your continued confidence in us, regardless of what our future holds. We are very, very, very grateful. And then Kit Cassie, once again, being very kind to us, sending us a very simple Merry Christmas, lads, with a little something for our stocking. So thank you, Kit Cassie. Really appreciate the love. And there was one kid, I wish I can remember their name, but I think it was on Blue Sky, who found us and was very, very happy to have found us, was like, "Yay, I found you." And told me that our show is their happy place.
Oh, that's cool.
Which it's like, oh my God, could you be any more adorable? Thank you. So I'm very happy to be anybody's happy place. That's a pleasure and a privilege. So
Indeed.
Hopefully I will be able to. It's harder to find things on Blue Sky than on Twitter through the search function. I can remember a couple of keywords and something, and
yeah, it's
I can sometimes find an old tweet again, but I don't recognize this person's handle, so it's kind of hard for me to look for the other name because I don't remember, and there was no bookmarks that I could save it and to find it. So Blue Sky's while it is very good, without a bookmark function, it makes it hard to track back past tweets, or whatever they call them, posts or skeets, or but that was a beautiful sentiment. So thank you for those beautiful compliments. We really appreciate that. So yeah, we like to hear from you, especially if you got beautiful things like that to say to us. So truenortheager@gmail.com is our email address. You can reach us at trueeager at our Twitter and Blue Sky places, at our home, our original home on Facebook, True North Eager Beaver. You can leave us a message there. And if you're listening to us on YouTube, right down below in the comments section, if you leave us a little something, we do read everything. Not able to get back to everyone, but we read everything. And we thank you so much for everything that you do, because your contributions do help make the show better. Because democracy is something that you do. If you live in Cloverdale, Langley City, you have a by-election in 7 days, 1 week left to go. So if you haven't researched your candidates, do so. Early voting might be open at this moment. So please make your plan to vote. Look that up. And if you are in Lethbridge West, the provincial by-election there is 2 days later on December 18th. Of course, all the same things apply. And also, because since we often encourage you to write letters, please do, if you have a moment, to write some letters to your federal MP, to be asking them to support a law that makes it such that all leaders of federal parties with seats in the House must mandatorily undergo security clearance process with oversight. And that no longer will the Prime Minister get it up automatically just by virtue of the fact that they become the Prime Minister.
Well, I was surprised, when I learned that it wasn't mandatory, that they already were. I thought if you were the party leader, you already were vetted, and it's like, no, you're not. I'm like, what? That doesn't make any sense to me. That you should be cleared. Like, you should have security clearance if you're the leader of a national party. I don't understand how you could be the leader of a national party and not have that clearance. It's astonishing to me.
Mm-hmm. Look at that's that little village thing about Canada, right? The way that we see ourselves is not that important. It's like only the Prime Minister needs it. Why would anybody else? Nobody cares about us. It turns out a lot of people care about
all
it.
Party leaders should have NSICOP clearance, period.
We're finding out with this foreign. Yeah. But we're finding out there's this foreign interference stuff that there's a whole lot of people who are way more interested in us, like very interested in us than we ever suspected. We're in all little Boy Scout Canada, peacemakers. Nobody cares about us. Do anything to us. Surprise! So
guess what?
This is stuff we got to do now. And the Premier should have it too.
Period.
Because sometimes things happen provincially like this. They need it too. Like it's on a case by cases. They need it. Now, the interesting thing here is that it appears. Remember when the Prime Minister stated asks CSIS to do whatever it is they can to find something that they could give Polyev. It seems that CSIS has announced that they do have something for him. Now, of course, Pierre, watch it, because I'm calling it's going to happen. Once he gets it, he's going to go around and telling everybody he got cleared. Yeah. He got cleared. He got all the information that anybody else would get. No, this is a TRM. Threat reduction measure thing. Like this. Ask Michael Chung, if you remember his testimony, how useful the TRM was for him. So he's going to be getting some information, what he's allowed to get through a TRM. Now, the other thing that could be happening is that a lot of our kids, and I'm sure you do as well, Mr. Grizzly, have it on good authority from certain friends who work in this field, that TRMs sometimes are used investigative tools. So the people delivering this to him might be getting as much information as they are delivering. Number one. Number two, some people are thinking, I hope it's a setup where they're going to show him the information they have on him and arrest him. I don't think that is going to happen. But damn you for planting the seed of hope in my little heart. my little petty heart, because now I would love to see that happen. But what I would love to see happen is in that series of information that is given to him, that our intelligence services might slip in a couple of pieces of information that are not exactly true, to see if he goes and repeats them and blabs them.
Let's see what happens.
That I would be very happy would happen.
Let's see.
Hold on tight, kids. Enough. Canadian politics, yes, just got a whole lot more interesting. Mr. Grizzly, you have some words of wisdom for us?
Not really. I'm just exhausted and I got to take the dog out. So take care of yourselves today. I don't know what else to tell you.
All right. Mr. Grizzly, please cue the cock. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.
I have a quick.
All right. One little bit of. Oh, you had something, Mr. Grizzly?
Yeah, there's a huge delay here. The grandfather sitting on an easy chair with his granddaughter sitting on his knee, and the grandfather says to the granddaughter, "In my day, we had measles, polio, and Nazis to worry about." And her thought bubble is, "I don't have the heart to tell him." Very realistic.
Oh,
looks like we've flown.
Ouch.
There's a massive delay.
Yeah, you giggle, but it's not funny. Yeah. A bit of news for the Easter egg. It seems that Canada is getting a new Roman Catholic cardinal. The Archbishop of Toronto, Frank Leo, who's originally from Montreal, will become the 5th cardinal from Canada and the youngest and the 18th cardinal from Canada ever. So the 5th cardinal from Canada currently there, becomes the only city in the world with 2 cardinals eligible to vote in a conclave, which means they're also eligible to be elected pope. Frank Leo speaks 4 languages, including French and Italian. Typically, the Archbishop of Toronto automatically becomes a cardinal, but given that this pope kind of marches to the beat of his own drummer, it seems that Leo was actually surprised to get the call and was not expecting it. He had been a parish priest in Montreal, was part of the Vatican's diplomatic service, and taught theology to seminarians prior to being appointed Archbishop of Toronto by the Pope last year. Unfortunately, he believes contraception is an evil and opposes opening up the priesthood to women, but he does agree with the Pope that women should have expanded roles in the church. The Pope in all nominated 21 cardinals from 6 continents, many with countries with very small Roman Catholic populations, such as Japan, and some from Iran and Serbia, which have never had a cardinal before but have one now. Since being elected in, Francis has named cardinals from outside the church's traditional power centers. There are now cardinals from 90 different countries in the College of Cardinals. This college has 253 members overall, including more than half who are currently eligible to vote during a conclave. Members are allowed to vote until they turn 80 years old. Because after 80 years old, I guess you can't become pope. So if you're eligible to vote in the conclave, you're eligible to become pope. And since they don't want a pope starting a term after 80 years old, that's why that happens. So there you go. Another cardinal, 5 Canadians for those who are that's a thing. All right. We're done for the day. Have a most perfect day, everyone.
I'll see you.
Rest well, Mr. Grizzly.